Bet anywhere with TVG. He has emerged as the fastest horse in the land.
Final furlong, Private's on the leader. Runhappy just keeps coming at him. Runhappy, and boy, does this horse love to run. The aptly named Runhappy to take it.
Runhappy has speed and loves to run. The 3-year-old son of Super Saver will try for his 4th consecutive stakes win in the Grade 1 Malibu. But he'll have to get past a horse with the home court advantage.
Texas Red in the red cap is running on late on the outside. Lord Nelson, it's wide open. Texas Red now getting into stride. Texas Red on the inside, coming like an express train. Texas Red, Lord Nelson, Lord Nelson. Lord Nelson's going to keep him at bay.
And an up-and-coming speedster from the Kieran McLaughlin barn.
Watershed has a head in front. And here is Watershed in the final furlong now, shaken up by Joel Rosario, just for good measure past the 16th pole. And Watershed has this one well in hand and wrapped up.
The Malibu Stakes, Saturday at Santa Anita.
Promises to be a great race, and it's always something to look forward to. A Grade 1 event the day after Christmas, the Malibu, a very prestigious race, which some of the greats have won. And the trainer of Runhappy, Laura Wohlers, has taken some time out of her day to join us here on the show. And Laura, I know you've been in California for a while. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Now, in terms of Runhappy, this is a horse that has got so many fans already, and I pretty much call him a cult hero there in Kentucky. When I was back in Lexington, I'm hearing all these stories about how much talent the horse has had and how much fun he's been to follow. So for all the fans that know so much about Runhappy but don't know much about Laura Wohlers, how would you like to introduce yourself to them?
Well, I've always been the racing manager for Mr. McAville since he started in the business back in '95, and very hands-on with, working with all the trainers and sometimes training privately as I am now, and that's really about all I've really done for him. I, just always tried to do what he wants to do and train the horse the way he wants him trained.
You actually picked this horse out at the Keeneland September yearling sale back in 2013, and you guys paid a pretty good amount, $200,000. What was it that you liked so much about the presence and just seeing him at the sale?
Well, he had really good conformation. We like to train very hard, and so conformation is very important if you want to keep him sound. So, I'd seen him at the consignment there at the Leicesters consignment, consignment, and once we looked at him, and we had a couple other people there that went and gave their second opinion. Everybody seemed to like him physically, and then we had some people that were working with us. THT Bloodstock was working with us also, and they liked his mind, and we just felt like everything kind of pointed to that he was a horse that we thought we would like. It certainly has turned out well.
Definitely, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you too. You hear a lot of bloodstock agents talk about their mind. How do you get a read on the mental fortitude of a horse when they're so young and they're not even racing just yet? You're basically just kind of taking a look at them in their infancy.
Well, I think that, a lot of horses just show you that they you look for what they call a good eye. So sometimes you can see that. We use THT, and he has Kerry Thomas has a specific way he looks at him. He certainly seemed to be a good-minded horse, and Kerry verified of that. And, I think that a lot of times, horses that are smarter learn a little quicker, a little bit more settled horses. I mean, he's just such a much settled horse than most colts and most 3-year-olds. And I think a lot of that is that he just is a very, sound-minded horse and just is very calm most of the time.
I thought it was great. You got some advice here from Kerry Thomas. He's one of the brightest in our game. I don't know if a lot of people know about him, but a tremendous asset to the game in terms of the emotional confirmation of these racehorses. Now, the name, Laura, fits the horse so well, Runhappy. Who gave him his name?
Well, that was kind of a interesting story. I work in the service department for Mac, until I started coming back to train here recently. And I typed a ticket one day and was just kind of typing fast. And I made the comment in the comment section. I said, customer unhappy with sofa. And I was typing fast. The R went in front of the unhappy from customer, and it made the word Runhappy. Matt came over and said, hey, you just named our Triple Crown winner. What yearling do you want to name? And I said, well, I'll name Runhappy. I'll name the Super Saver that because he's probably going to be our best. And we didn't make the Derby Trail, but we certainly have been very happy with him. He certainly has been the best horse we've ever owned.
Wow, that only adds to the legend of Runhappy. Now, You trained this horse for the first 2 starts, and that debut at Turfway Park, I mean, that might have been the craziest debut I've ever seen. So how confident were you going into the race, and what were you feeling on that cold night in December when he just ran away from the field?
Well, you know, I wasn't 100% confident. We knew he had a bunch of talent. We had decided that we wanted to try to run him just to beat that Derby curse that you can't ever win the Derby if you didn't run it too. So we had pretty much rushed him into that race. Unfortunately, Cordell was down there at the time working hands-on all the time, and I was coming in intermittently. And unfortunately, he didn't know how to break yet, and so we were having to rush him through that breaking process. So he kind of got it in his mind that I'm just going to leave the gate and run as fast as I can. And so he actually didn't really still break very well that night. Mac and I were watching it on the computer at work, and it looked pretty disappointing when he first started out. And, you know, Mac said, my God, you know, he's going to run last. And I said, well, give him just a minute. He's got a little bit of speed. And then when he came running up the inside rail, it was just astounding to see him go flying past those horses. And, of course, he was so green. He saw the lights and started switching leads and blew the turn. And, I mean, it was just, you know, it was remarkable. I mean, it certainly showed he had talent. And, you know, he certainly has matured quite a bit since then, of course, getting older. And then we've had a good crew with him. And so, you know, he's matured quite a bit. Yeah, but that was pretty much about the funniest race we've ever watched.
And we know that you've been the racing manager for such a long time there for James. Now, in terms of coming back this year at Indiana Grand with Maria Burrell, I know you were still very involved. I saw you out there at Keeneland for both of the big wins and still within the camp. So was there an agreement with Maria for, let's say, the opportunity to train the horse for a year and then you would take the horse back over? How did the agreement go for who would train this horse this year? And also, what was your part as the racing manager in picking the spots and also having a say in where he raced this year?
Well, anytime that we have a private barn, that we're running a private barn and we're not paying for a public, you know, trainer to train them, Mac and I will be very involved. We believe in training hard, and it's hard to find people that want to train quite as hard as we do. And we, you know, like to do things a little differently sometimes. So, you know, he had been in Louisiana. We brought him back. I felt like I needed somebody hands-on to be there to help Cordell and do a lot of the paperwork logistics as well as watching him on the track and, you know, making some decisions. And we had decided, Mac had decided he definitely wanted to run him through his allowance conditions because he was very, very, you know, running immaturely. And even though he's a smart horse, he just needed some time to kind of develop his, you know, maturity in the racing game. So we had decided we wanted to run him through the allowance conditions. Maria and I had discussed, of course, you know, where we could send them. And I let Maria pretty much go through all those condition books. She had a little more time than I had. And she found that race in Indiana. We felt like, you know, she felt maybe a little more confident than I did. But, you know, off of the small amounts of work he'd had going into it. But he had trained hard into it also. And so we knew that he had talent. And once he won that, we had already picked out the spot that if he did win, we would take him to Ellis Park, and then at that point we would take him to stakes races if he had won again. So since he did some pretty fantastic running in those two, we decided we'd go ahead and take a shot at the big, you know, the big league with him.
And the race there in the King's Bishop, I mean, that might have been the standout performance, one of the best performances of the year. What was the feeling like with the camp when you knew you had a talented horse, but you'd never proven it on a big stage? So what was that like, setting the stakes record there with Runhappy in the King's Bishop?
It was pretty stupendous. I don't know that that's not going to be the best day of racing for all of us. And we've been in the game a long time. It was our first Grade 1. And we took him there early like we did here in California to try to prepare him. So, you know, when I got there, you know, previous to the race, you know, a few days before the race or so, and I got there, it really seemed like he had acclimated well to there. He looked really, really good the day in the past. And it was, you know, we all went into the race with a lot of confidence that we felt like he really, truly had a chance to win. You know, we had him prepared, and he seemed to be doing well, and he looked good, acted good, we did a lot of schooling with him. So we went into the race feeling like, you know, with confidence that he would run well. But, I mean, the performance he put on, of course, was absolutely astounding, you know, being able to go 44 and change and then finish up in a drive down the lane. And, you know, I think to date that's his best race. And, you know, I think that will probably, you know, even the Breeders' Cup was a thrill, but that one might have been a little bit more.
Now, for every great horse or every great athlete, there's always going to be some of the naysayers or people on the other side of the fence. And I have heard this before. They say, well, they're training this horse maybe too hard, or maybe he's over the top. I mean, to run past a horse like Private Zone has got to take a lot out of you. And a lot of times after the Breeders' Cup, you will get a freshening. But you've admitted that training hard is a part of the program. So what would you say to those people that say maybe you guys have pushed this horse too hard?
Well, we've trained him hard from the very beginning, so, and he seems to do well at it. We can always get beat, and I certainly don't feel like we're going to be going, over there Saturday and know that we're going to leave there a winner. I mean, nobody should feel that, and I think we've got some competitors there. We freshened him up just a little bit after the Breeders' Cup with, a couple of weeks of jogging and some light galloping, and we really only brought him back to breezing, about a month after that. So, he's basically had a half mile, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8. So, he was already fit enough to be able to do those consecutively. But, he's always trained hard. And, he's got a well-deserved rest coming. But I think that he's going into it good. And I think that we've got some horses to beat. Lord Nelson looks like a really, really nice horse. And, of course, we also have Marking and Watershed. And they're both going to be, horses that are gunning for us. So it's going to be a tough race.
A few more questions I want to ask you here. The fact that he sleeps so much, the Runhappy Facebook page, they got almost 5 million views for the wake-up process. So is that normal for a thoroughbred to sleep that much and like that? It only adds, once again, to the intrigue and the legend of Runhappy.
Well, I think with him, what's different about him is that he sleeps a lot laying down. There's a lot of horses that rest all the time during the day at different times, but a lot of them just sleep in the standing up position, which he does also sometimes. But with him, he just literally throws himself down on the ground, not throws himself down on the ground, but, drops to the ground, and just lets himself really go into some deep sleep. And that's what's funny about him is that he just does that. I think it's very good for him. I think it's a smart thing to do and get the weight off his legs. But, he just really seems to enjoy sleeping like that. When he doesn't want to get up, it takes a little bit of an effort, like you saw with Cordell the morning that he didn't want to get up, when we were getting ready to train. So, he does lay down and sleep, I would say probably, 2 times a day during the day. And then, of course, at night, he spends a lot of time sleeping, laying down. And so, everybody pretty much laughs about that. There's a lot of times the girl at the track here that's one of the security guards has come over 2 or 3 times this week to see him and give him peppermints, and every time she's come, he's been laying down. So he's kind of stays true to his word with that.
All right, Laura, last thing I wanted to ask you, in basically 4 or 5 months' time, you go from winning an allowance at Indiana Grand to winning the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Sprint. You mentioned the fact that you've trained this horse hard. This would be the last stop before a bit of a vacation. So in terms of 2016, do you guys have a bit of a plan mapped out for what races that you want to take Runhappy to?
Yes, we want to stretch him out next year. We never really felt like he was only a sprinter. And we are probably going to gear ourselves to try to go into the Met Mile in June. And that would be our first goal, to try to win. Don't know if we'll have time to do a race before then or we'll go straight into the race, but we'll see how he trains coming off the layup and see how everything goes. But we'd like to stretch him out to at least a mile next year, and starting with the Met. And then we'll see from there, how he does and whether it looks like we want to take him longer or stay at the mile route.
Well, Laura, thanks for coming on and giving us a little background on yourself and Runhappy. Enjoy Christmas in California, and best of luck there in the Malibu.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.